Please be seated. Before the court is filed 2023-110-FC with the state of Michigan versus Shanda Vander Ark. Are you Shanda Vander Ark? Yes. All right, Ms. Vander Ark appears before the court with her attorney, Mr. Ronald Ambrose. Ms. Lindquist is here on behalf of the people of the state of Michigan. Setting time for a continuation of a hearing on a defendant's motion for a new trial. I believe we are at the point where Ms. Vander Ark was going to testify. Is that correct, Mr. Ambrose?
It is, Your Honor.
Okay, is that your understanding, Ms. Bloomquist?
That is, Your Honor. At the last hearing, we took some of my witnesses out of order so that we could just kind of get something done on the record. I believe it was November 25th.
Yep. Okay, all right, Mr. Ambrose, you can go ahead and call your first witness.
Yes, Shanda Vander Ark.
All right, Ms. Vander Ark, if you want to come right around here, please remain standing and raise your right hand. Hand on and grab your seat. Please state your name for the record, spelling your first name and last name.
Shanda Vander Ark, SHANDA-VANDER, space capital ARK.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Ambrose.
And Ms. Vander Ark, you are the defendant in this case, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And your attorney at the trial court level was who?
Fred Johnson.
Fred Johnson. And when did you first meet with Fred Johnson?
About the case the day after, 2 days after I was arrested.
Okay. And can you tell the court what your conversations were with Mr. Johnson?
That first day, we just kind of talked in general. We said from day one that I was going to have to testify. So we talked about that. He talked about he was putting together a team to work on it. And I remember one thing of all the weird things to remember. He asked me what my favorite TV show was, and he was going to have an intern watch it and then come in and tell me about it every week, just to have that time. But there wasn't a whole lot of specifics that day. We were just talking. He asked about my mental health. And
was there any a point in time that you ever conceded your guilt in this case?
never.
Did you always relay to Mr. Johnson that you were not guilty?
Yes.
All right. Have you ever been charged with anything?
No. I've never even gotten a parking ticket.
Okay. You have testified in this case, correct?
Yes, sir.
Prior to testifying in this case, had you ever testified before?
Yes, sir, when I was a kid.
How old were you?
Oh gosh, from age 8 up through, I think about 16 was the last time my biological father tried to get visitation or custody of us.
Okay. Was being charged in this case, can you describe your mental health immediately after being charged? Yes.
Oh, horrible. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I actually didn't eat for 18 days after I got to Muskegon County Jail. It was, I didn't know which way was up.
Just as a bit of a background, when did you move to Michigan?
Oh gosh, 2015, I think.
Okay, and
My little guy was like 6 months old.
Okay, so it was, who moved to Michigan with you?
It was my late husband Adam and little man and myself. That was it.
Okay, and at some point Paul comes to Michigan?
Yes.
Do you recall when that was?
He had just turned 18 and graduated high school, so that was 2020. It was in the middle of COVID.
Okay, and sometime after that Timothy arrives?
A year later.
Do you remember the month?
I want to say it was the end of May because school had let out.
Okay. May of 2021?
Yes, sir.
And I think during your testimony in this trial, he came with like a bag of medications.
A gallon-sized Ziploc bag, yeah.
All right. What were the medications for?
Well, he was diagnosed ADHD, sensory processing disorder, bipolar, and on the autism spectrum, but he was very high functioning. And so that was, he had, I don't remember the name of any of them really, but there was one that made him like a zombie that he took twice a day. And I mean, I think there was probably 8 or 9 medications per day that he was taking.
Why did he move to Michigan?
I got a text from his dad one day that he could no longer deal with him, that Timothy was pushing his buttons, that if he did not come to live with me, my ex was going to put his hands on him.
And so in May of...
And asked me to take him, yes, and I took him.
From May and when he first arrived, what was his behavior like?
I mean, he was about to turn 15 when we got him, so he was a teenager, but nothing outlandish. I mean, he was trying. He did not care to tell the truth hardly at all. There's no point in asking him a question pretty much the whole time. But you know, he would do stuff. He took my youngest toys at times. He broke a couple of them, and then he took some stuff from Paul. But like, it was just typical teenage. It wasn't anything that we couldn't handle. So.
In January of 2022, a significant event happens.
My late husband Adam had a stroke January 3rd of 2022.
Okay.
A massive stroke.
And how did that impact the household?
Better question is probably how didn't it? I lost his income. I was already the primary breadwinner, but then I'm the sole breadwinner. We had a babysitting schedule worked out for the little guy, and with Paul and Timothy, at that point we didn't leave Timothy alone with the little one, really. And you know, I was working full time. I was gone because of the location I worked and driving over there and driving back. I was gone from the house 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. So everything just fell apart. You know, I wasn't paying bills on time. I was barely surviving.
Was Timothy being watched by your late husband prior to January?
Yes, yeah, him and the little guy. And Paul.
I think you mentioned that in your direct testimony, this was around Mother's Day of 2022. Timothy was about 104 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
And you knew that because he picked up the dog.
He weighed the dog. I could no longer lift. It was a Great Dane puppy that was 7 months old, 6 months old at the time. And the dog weighed 102 pounds. There was no way I could lift that dog.
Okay.
And so he got on the scale, weighed himself, grabbed the dog, got on the scale.
What happens from that day until July 6, 2022?
I mean, from what little I remember, it was the same thing that had started when the stroke happened. Timothy, I remember a couple times, he flat out told me, he said, I'm going to keep doing stuff until you just let me do what I want. And I said, that's not happening. And it just snowballed. I don't remember a peaceful moment after the stroke for one reason or another. And that's not all on him. I mean, it was just in general, but he certainly created a lot of it.
He dies on July 6, 2022, correct?
A month before he's 16.
When are you arrested?
July 7th.
And are you immediately taken to the Muskegon County Jail?
You mean on the 7th?
Yes.
Yes, from the Norton Shores Police Department.
Okay. What were your conditions like in the Macomb County Jail, or Muskegon County Jail?
It was awful. I was on max security solely because of my charges, so I was isolated completely by myself in a room.
When you say max security, what was it like?
You're in a room by yourself. You only have the option of getting out of the room into the pod 1 hour a day, so you're locked down 23 hours a day. For me, I was in such bad shape, I couldn't eat, I barely slept. I mean, the whole 17 and a half months there, I might have averaged an hour or two of sleep a night. And there was no mental health treatment. I mean, they tried a couple of meds, but they did nothing. And I kept asking to speak with the doctor, because it was always a social worker. And she said, oh, you're on the waiting list. And I guess the waiting list was longer than 17 and a half months. But I met with her a few times, and she was no help at all. She'd say, oh, I'll meet with you once a week, or I'll meet with you once a month, and that never happened.
So it wasn't because of anything that you did, it was just the nature of your charges that they put you in max?
That's the only reason, yes.
How often, well, did you have mental health issues prior to that?
I have severe ADHD, and I have sensory processing disorder, and a little bit of OCD. I guess it was a month after I got to Huron Valley, I was diagnosed bipolar, which I've had my whole life, I guess, and didn't know it. But at the time, I just knew about the ADHD and the sensory processing.
How often during this time period would you see Mr. Johnson? From the time that you're incarcerated to...
I think the first month I saw him 2 or 3 times, but after that it was every once in a blue moon. I think he said it was once every other month. It didn't even seem like that often.
During your conversations with him, were you talking trial strategy?
A little bit. We didn't a lot, but we did a little bit.
Was it ever, well, tell me what the strategy was.
Well, on the child abuse charge, it was intentionally and knowingly, and that was, without that, the felony murder charge was gone. And so that's where we focused. It was never on I didn't even realize second degree would be an option until the day of jury selection. So we focused on the intentionally and knowingly from that, because that cost the felony murder charge.
Did you know manslaughter was an option?
We never talked about second degree or manslaughter until the day of jury selection. It was on the jury instructions for second degree. And then the last morning, when I had the breakdown, I vaguely remember him coming in and saying he got these instructions added. And I had no clue what to say. I was in bad shape, so.
Well, tell me about, I mean, you testified.
Yes.
And tell the court how you felt during your testimony.
Well, before the testimony started, and this was one of the things that really shocked me, while the medical examiner was testifying, Fred was writing down questions. He had not had any questions.
Non-responsive.
Sustained.
How were you feeling during your testimony?
Stressed, panicked, scared, terrified.
Okay. And how did your testimony end on that third day of trial?
I believe they were talking about jury questions, and I had a really bad panic attack.
Okay. And what happens after that?
Well, I had been in the room by myself in a pod.
Well, I mean, from the time that you leave the courtroom, this courtroom.
Yeah. Instead of going back to the pod, I guess the sheriff had decided to put me back down in holding instead of where I had been, where there was at least people around, even though I couldn't come out to see them.
Are you okay, so you're talking about in this
In Muskegon
building?
County Jail, yeah.
Oh, at the bill, okay.
Yeah. So he separated me completely down in holding. And
Did Mr. Johnson talk to you after that, on that third day?
no.
Okay. And what happens at the jail over the course of the night?
Well, I remember right after I got back, I mean, I was upset at the whole being separated, the lights don't dim, the noise level was horrible, and I was trying to think through trial stuff just to keep myself occupied. I had thought of some questions I wanted him to come back and try to ask me the next day, but then I don't know if I even slept for an hour that night, but I remember that when I don't want to say come to, when I was functioning, I was curled in a ball. I was freaking the heck out. I couldn't. When they first came to get me, I said, I can't even go. I can't leave the room. And they're like, well, you have to. Come on. And it just.
how were you taken from the jail to the courthouse or courtroom?
Well, we went to, I guess, where I changed clothes, and that's as far as I got. But we walked over there.
Okay. We heard, you were in the courtroom when we heard some testimony that you were curled up in a ball. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Were you suicidal?
I don't remember saying it, but yes, apparently I made at least one comment that I was going to kill myself.
All right. I mean, sounds pretty drastic. What else do you remember from that morning?
I remember just being sheer panic. I was frozen, like I couldn't even move. I remember laying up against the wall on the floor on my side on one of the concrete benches in one of the holding rooms that they tried to come upstairs, and I couldn't do it. And so I went in there and curled up in a ball on my side. I was completely paralyzed. My brain was not working. Anytime I even thought about anything, I wanted to panic, and I had several panic attacks during that time.
Do you recall talking with Mr. Johnson during this time?
A little bit, yes, sir.
What was the nature of your conversation? Or was he talking to you, you talking back, or what was it, how was it going?
I remember at one point he came in and said that he had fought for a while to get the involuntary manslaughter instructions put on, and I remember thinking, what's that got to do with anything? And then I specifically asked him, after we tried to come upstairs, I said, look, can we please adjourn this? I can't do this today. And I asked him several times, and he made a comment. He said, oh, it'll just be the same way if we do that. You're going to have the same issue. And then he said, well, we'll just go on without you, and then he left.
Do you recall signing the document?
No.
You've seen it since, though?
Yes, I have.
All right. Is that your signature or not?
I mean, it looks like it. It looks like a version of it.
Okay. But you don't recall signing? Is that a no?
No, sorry.
Did any medical personnel come to talk to you when you were in your condition?
No, sir.
When you were testifying on that third day, did you ever concede that you were guilty of anything?
No, not for a second.
And as far as you knew, Mr. Johnson knew what your position was.
Oh, yes.
And what was that?
That I was not guilty. We had a visit. It was one of the last couple of visits I had with him, and he was actually the one that stated, we've been talking about the intentionally and knowingly, and he said, they don't have intentionally and knowingly, you're not guilty.
Okay.
And I clung to that.
And the intentionally and knowingly phrase that relates to the first degree child
Yes, sir.
abuse. And in your understanding, the ultimate charge was felony murder.
Yes, sir.
And the predicate offense was the first degree child abuse.
Yes, sir.
All right. I don't have any further questions now.
One question. Can you hear me? Is it all right if I move the podium? Okay. Good morning.
Morning.
So, Ms. Vander Ark, I just want to go back and ask you a little bit about your background, okay? So, were you a legal clerk, or what was your exact role at Newaygo County Circuit Court?
I was a law clerk.
Okay. And you were previously an intern in Muskegon County Circuit Court, correct?
I was, yes.
What were some of your job duties in
Legal
those two
research.
positions?
Oh, sorry. Well, both of them. I did legal research. I helped score sentencing to make sure it was accurate. That was about the extent of it here, because I was still in law school. When I worked for my judge in Newaygo, I actually did the research, and I would draft opinions, and then he would, decide if that was okay, and then most of the time he just signed off on them that I'd gotten it correct.
Is it fair to say that you worked on post-conviction motions for your judges,
Yes, I did several times.
including claims of ineffective assistance of counsel?
I honestly, I mean, I would assume so. I don't remember.
And so in other defendants' cases, you would be writing draft opinions or bench memos for circuit court judges.
That's what I wrote. I don't think we had an ineffective assistance. I don't think so. I mean, I may be wrong, but I don't think so.
And it's your testimony that your opinions or your recommendation to the judge was so good, he just wrote off on it, signed off?
On most of the time. There was a few that he adjusted, but he would read them and then send them over to his clerk to publish, so.
And this all happened before you were criminally charged, correct?
Yes,
So even before you were at a trial, you are intimately familiar with post-conviction motions, correct?
I wouldn't say intimately familiar. I mean, some of them I was familiar with, but
Familiar enough for your judge to just
Yeah.
rubber stamp what you
for
said?
the ones, a lot of what we did, actually most of what we did was civil. There was some criminal, but most of the motions and the work I did as far as writing was civil. He did both civil and criminal.
Now, Ms. Vander Ark, you mentioned that Mr. Johnson had a team of individuals at the Public Defender's Office, correct?
Yes.
And could you tell the judge how many individuals were on that team?
I have no idea. I think total, I met with, over time, probably 6. And then he'd mentioned, he mentioned having somebody doing research and other people and other interns working on it, but that's the people I met with. I don't know how many there were.
Okay. It wasn't just you and Mr. Johnson working on the case, though?
No, it wasn't.
He had social workers that
Yes.
assisted you?
Yes,
And it sounds like interns as well?
yes.
And other attorneys in his office?
Yes, I only met, as far as the criminal side, I only met with another attorney in his office. It was at one hearing, it was the gentleman that sat second chair, and then at trial. I didn't meet with any of the other attorneys otherwise.
And you said that Mr. Johnson began meeting with you approximately 2 days after your arrest?
Yes,
And he continued to meet with you throughout the pendency of the case?
yes.
And his team would meet with you throughout the pendency of the case?
The social worker is the one I saw the most. I'm trying to think, I saw the intern some, but that was mostly it.
And would, when you say the social worker, do you recall, was that Melinda Katecki?
For the last 2 visits, I only saw her twice in person. And I think she was online once for a meeting with a doctor. But there was another social worker that met with me once a week, usually for the first few months, I don't know, probably 6 months at least, and then she moved on from the office.
Now, Ms. Vander Ark, you've spoken quite a bit this morning about your medical, episode, for lack of a better term, medical episode that happened mid-trial. Okay, so I'm going to go into that. But that's not the first episode you had during these proceedings, correct?
No.
Okay. And one of those happened at your preliminary hearing, or your preliminary
Yes.
examination, correct?
Yes.
And that occurred just before Paul was going to testify at the prelim, correct?
I believe so.
And your medical episode that happened in the trial happened right when you'd been confronted during cross-examination, correct?
I had one other one before trial,
Oh.
during trial.
Okay, when was that?
There were some police officers testifying.
And it's
But
your...
I was sitting there and had a panic attack, and they cleared the jury out.
And do you recall what the officer was testifying about when you had that
I don't.
episode?
No, I don't.
Probably something pretty significant about your case, though, correct?
I mean, I would assume so.
Or something about your son's condition?
I don't know.
It's fair to say that those episodes, though, don't happen all the time.
They do, well, they were beforehand, and they still do happen consistently.
That's a poorly worded question, so I'll clarify here. Those episodes didn't happen on direct examination with your own attorney questioning you, correct?
They didn't happen yet?
They didn't happen during opening statements
No?
or jury selection? No?
No?
They didn't happen during certain parts of your preliminary examination?
No?
But these episodes happen when you're confronted with evidence that you don't want to acknowledge or admit. Is that fair?
No, they happened when I was confronted with traumatic events. It was anything traumatic that got that bad.
So seeing your son, who was in your care for all those months, in a picture, was traumatic to you?
Yes, extremely.
But you'd seen him every day that he was in your care, correct?
Yes, what I remembered, yes.
And then when you see a picture of him on that stand is when you have this episode.
Yes, I mean, I had panic attacks. Looking back, I know I had panic attacks previously, but I don't know what brought those on.
Nobody diagnosed you with a panic attack on the night of that trial, correct?
I don't know.
That's a yes or no?
I said I don't know.
Okay. You have no evidence that you had medical diagnosis of a panic attack that day?
That day? No. As far as I know, no.
And you have no medical diagnosis that you had a panic attack during your preliminary examination, correct?
There was no medical person called in.
Okay, so my question was, you don't have medical documentation of a panic attack that day?
No.
So let's talk about some medical documentation you do have. Do you recall Mr. Johnson submitted you to multiple individuals for forensic examination?
Yes.
And you met with those medical providers?
Yes.
And how many would you say, based on your memory, you met with?
A couple?
Okay. Would it surprise you that there's approximately 4 reports regarding your criminal responsibility or competency?
No. It
Would it surprise
me.
you?
No, because I understand the process, so it doesn't surprise me.
Okay. What's your understanding of the process?
That both sides can get the competency evaluation and the responsibility evaluation.
And you understand that under Michigan law, you're presumed competent unless proven otherwise, or unless shown otherwise, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You've never been shown to be incompetent, correct?
Not medically, no.
No, not legally. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You have never had a legal determination that you are incompetent, correct?
Yeah.
And that's after meeting with these 4 providers, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, some of the providers called into question your rendition of facts to present to them. Do you recall that?
I don't recall that, but I'll trust if they said that.
Do you recall specifically, let me go back here before we get into that. Do you remember your interviews with these providers?
Bits and pieces.
Do you feel that you were truthful with them?
Yes.
Do you feel that you appropriately explained your situation and your memory with them?
I hope so.
But you don't know, correct?
No, I don't.
Sorry, bear with me one moment, please. Your Honor, I'm referencing People's Exhibit 2, which I believe was attached to my brief, which would be a June 20th, 2023 report authored by a Benjamin La Liberty, doctor. Now, did you tell this doctor or this individual at the Department of Health and Human Services Center for Forensic Psychiatry that you disassociated during times that Timothy was in your care?
Yes, even times when he wasn't. I mean, it happened regularly, it still does.
Well, and that's my question. So, is your claim in this post-conviction motion that you were disassociating during parts of the trial?
I mean, I'm not a medical person, so I don't know, but that's the only answer I have.
Well, so I'm not asking you to give me a medical opinion. I'm asking you to tell me what you mean when you're saying you disassociate. So what do you mean when you say you disassociate?
Usually it's a panic attack and I have no clue what's going on around me. I don't remember anything during that.
And when you've said that on that day of trial, when you had your episode, that you had a panic attack. But would that be a disassociation like you have just described?
During the panic attack, yes. They usually only last like 10, maybe 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Boquist?
Yes.
I just want to interject. Ms. Vander Ark, can you describe to the court what you believe of panic, what you are experiencing, not what you, so what you call panic attack? What are you experiencing during this event that you label as a panic attack?
It's one of two things on the breathing. Either I hyperventilate or I feel like I've got an elephant sitting in my chest and crushing it and I can't breathe.
So that's trouble breathing?
Yes. I'm shaking. My head is totally spinning.
So dizziness?
Yes, sir. I don't have a clue what's going on around me. I know people have tried to touch me during a panic attack, and that just freaks me out worse.
You mean painful?
No, just trying to make sure I'm okay.
So
And
when somebody touches you, what do you experience when someone touches you?
I pull away, and the panic gets worse.
Okay, so you're aware of somebody touching you?
When they
Okay.
actually put their hands on me, yes.
Okay. When you say you don't know what's going on around you, is it you have auditory problems or you can't hear, or you just have an inability to understand what's being said?
I think it's both. I mean, I don't remember anything that's been said to me during a panic attack. I know I had a couple people scare me at Huron Valley. They were just playing around, but it caused a panic attack because I didn't know they were there. And I guess they tried to talk to me, and they said, yeah, we got no response, and I don't remember them trying to talk to me at all.
Okay.
It's like
Do you
I'm down
have any
at,
other symptoms?
it's like I go into a total darkness, like this black hole.
No. When you say darkness, are you seeing black? What are you seeing? Is it
Like a
spots?
black or gray, usually. I'll try to fix on a spot as it sets in, but then that's it. I don't see anything else.
Can you move? Are you able to move your arms, legs, extremities?
Not most of the time, no. I'll curl up into a ball and,
So let me ask you a question. Do you curl up in a ball? Do you consciously make the decision to curl into a ball to stop the symptoms? Or is it an involuntary movement into a ball?
it's an involuntary movement.
So involuntary movement into a ball. Okay. And then you don't know how much time passes?
No,
Is that what you're telling me? Okay.
no. I know that afterwards, I've had somebody there and look at the clock, and the only thing I could tell you has been, I've had people say anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes that were around.
And you've said these have happened while incarcerated currently?
Yes, they still happen
In your
regularly.
cell, in the common areas, where they happen?
Most of the time it's in my room
In your cell?
or in the restroom, yeah.
Room or restroom? Okay. Any times when other inmates were around?
Yes,
Okay. So common areas?
yes,
Okay. And you're aware that these areas are filmed, correct?
yes,
This would be on camera?
yep,
Okay. So you're telling me that you experienced a panic attack where you curled in a ball on camera at the prison?
yes. In the foyer of one of my units, somebody came up behind me and scared me, and
Do you know approximately when that was?
I have well, I can give you a date range because there's a certain time I was in that unit.
Please
It
do
would
so.
be somewhere between end of August of 24, and beginning of January of 2025.
Okay.
That was the time I was in that.
All right, thank you. I just want to make sure we
Mhm.
understand each other about panics.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms.
If I
Goldberg.
may clarify, you said August of 2024 through January of 2025?
Yes, I was in, I can give you the name of the unit if
Yes,
you
that
want.
would be helpful.
Gladwin A.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Goldberg.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So, Ms. Vander Ark, now it seems like we're all on the same page about what you mean when you say panic or disassociate.
Yes,
Okay. And it's fair to say it's your testimony that you had that sort of episode mid-trial during your cross-examination. Is that your
Yes.
testimony?
Yes.
Now, are you aware, though, in People's Exhibit 2, that criminal responsibility report that I previously placed in the record, that it was noted by the clinician that your claims of disassociating, quote, only occurred when Timothy was bad? Are you aware of that in the report?
No, I'm not, because that's not true.
Okay. And overall, the opinion of the clinician was that when you described your current state, you did not describe any substantial functional impairments within the context of your current confinement.
If I said that, that's not true.
Well, that was his opinion.
That was his opinion? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know he said that, but that's...
And here, let's go further. On page 10, Your Honor, if I may approach? I'm showing the witness People's Exhibit 2, page 10. All right, Ms. Vander Ark, if you would look at that, and would you read right where that star starts? Please read that into the record.
Ms. Vander Ark was asked to recount her thoughts, feelings, and behaviors around the time of the alleged offense. However, Ms. Vander Ark claimed to have no memory of the events that led to Timothy's death, noting she frequently dissociated due to the stress of interacting with him.
And you can keep reading. Please read the whole paragraph.
Of note, this immediately appeared to be a self-protective response style as opposed to the result of a genuine memory deficit or bona fide dissociative condition. That is, her purported memory loss was noticeably selective and only involved the actions that allegedly caused the victim's passing. Thus, Ms. Vander Ark cannot be considered a credible historian. That's not true, but...
So, Ms. Vander Ark, we don't have an opinion from an expert that you were incompetent, correct?
Yes.
But we do have an opinion from an expert that you're not a credible historian, correct?
Looks like it.
And that's specifically as it relates to your credibility about these disassociations you claim to have, correct?
That I have, yes.
That you claim to have, correct? Have you been diagnosed medically in any of these reports with a dissociative condition?
Not in those reports, no.
Now, you, one of your claims in this post-conviction motion is that you take issue with Mr. Johnson not calling an expert, correct?
If that's what's in there, then we discussed it briefly. I didn't know what he was doing. So as far as if he was going to call him or not.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. You weren't sure if Mr. Johnson was going to call the expert, or if we weren't going to have the expert here at this hearing?
For a while, I wasn't sure if he was going to call him at the trial.
Okay.
Sorry.
But you do recall meeting with Dr. King, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. How did you feel that meeting went with Dr. King?
Long.
Was it thorough?
I would assume so, yeah. I mean, I don't remember the whole thing, but I know it was exhausting.
Mm-hmm. Now, Dr. King also has some opinions as it relates to your credibility as a historian, correct?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. So I'm looking here at Defendant's Exhibit B, page 10. And Ms. Vander Ark, I'm going to just start here where it says conclusion. Ms. Vander Ark overreported general psychological dysfunction and generated a larger than average number of infrequent responses. Are you aware that that was determined based on your psychological testing?
I mean, I think I've read it before.
Okay. You have no reason to dispute
No,
what
I'm
he
not
has in this
disputing.
report.
I'm not disputing.
Okay. In fact, you actually attached this report to your motion for a new trial, correct?
Yep, my attorney did, yes.
Yes. On your behalf, though,
Yes,
correct?
yeah.
Yes. And so, we have one clinician saying that you're not a credible historian, and another saying that you over-report general psychological dysfunction, correct?
That's what they say.
Ms. Vander Ark, there is no medical opinion now that determined you were not competent to proceed with trial, correct?
Correct.
You have no medical evidence today that you've presented at this hearing, correct?
Correct. But nobody bothered to get any.
Your Honor, I'd move to strike that non-responsive answer from the record.
I will.
Thank you.
Is non-responsive.
So I'm going to shift gears here a little bit. In your direct examination, you've provided multiple other individuals that you want to place blame on for what happened in your criminal case. Is that fair to say?
I mean, I'm not going to dispute it, yes. I don't remember all that testimony.
Well, just today. Today
Okay.
you said that it was your ex-husband's fault that Timothy came into your care, correct?
Well, he asked me, yes. That's what he told me, and that's why I took him.
And it's your testimony that it's the jail's fault for your housing situation that exacerbated your mental health, correct?
I didn't have any choice in the matter, so yes.
So that's a yes or no. Are you blaming the jail for your mental health?
For making it worse, yes.
So we have, you're blaming the jail, you're blaming your ex-husband. Now, you've also blamed Timothy today, didn't you?
As far as what?
As far as his behavior is causing you to act the way you acted.
As far as causing chaos, yes. I mean, as far as causing stress, yes.
And now you've blamed work as well, saying that caused stress. Your employment before your arrest.
I mean, work always causes stress.
This has been a consistent theme for you, where you want to blame others for things you've done, correct?
I've explained the situation.
Well, so you're saying it's your ex-husband's fault, it's the jail's fault, it's Timothy's fault, it's now your trial attorney's fault that we're here. So is it fair to say it's a theme of yours to point the finger at others for what's going on in your case?
I wouldn't say it's a theme, no. That's an opinion. You can see
All right.
the things that I had no say in that you can't blame me for.
Now let's talk about those the testimony you had about your being held in, you said it was max security during the
Yes.
pre-trial phase?
Yes.
Correct? You said you were locked in there and isolated?
In a room by myself, yes.
Okay, yes. Was Timothy also locked in a room and isolated when you locked him in the closet?
He wasn't locked in, but he was in the room, yes.
Okay. When you had alarms on his door to keep him in that closet, was he isolated?
Yes.
And he'd be locked in there for hours at a time, correct?
I would assume so, yes. I don't...
Yes or no? Was he locked in there for hours at a time?
Yes.
And you want the court to use your isolation as a basis for making a determination about your mental health, correct?
It has an effect on it, yes, it does.
What about Timothy's mental health? What impact did your locking him away, isolated, have on his mental health?
I have no idea how to answer that.
Truthfully, that's what you're here to do.
That is truthfully. I have no idea how to answer that.
Now, you talked about some of his diagnoses, correct?
Yes.
Obviously, it wouldn't be beneficial to him to be isolated like that, correct?
Yes. I mean, he isolated himself, too. He did not. I offered to... There were kids in the neighborhood, and I actually specifically asked them. He wasn't the most coordinated kid in the world, but they were playing basketball one day, and I said, hey, can he come over? They said, anytime. He never wanted to do that. when we went to little man's baseball games, he stuck to himself or with us. He didn't want to go talk to the older kids.
So it's your testimony that Timothy isolated himself?
Some of the time. Not all the time, but some of the time.
Timothy, who you went to such lengths to keep away from your in-laws that you were tracking their location so that your child G would be outside when his grandparents arrived, is the one that isolated himself?
I did not. That was not the point of finding out where Mom was. It was because the house was a mess. It wasn't. It had nothing to do with Timothy. That thought it hadn't even entered my mind until I got asked about it at trial.
You expect the judge to believe that Timothy did this to himself, correct?
Can you define this?
Well, that's what your testimony is
I'm
that
saying-
he isolated himself.
I said some of the time, and you said this. That's
Okay, I'll clarify. He isolated himself in that closet
some of the time. Some of the times downstairs,
where he had nothing but a tarp in there. He isolated himself in there. Is that your testimony?
he tore apart a mattress. But
That was not an answer.
some
My
of the
question.
time, I said some of the time.
Did he isolate himself in those ice baths?
I wasn't there for that.
But you ordered it, correct?
I don't remember.
You had a cell phone at the time this happened, right?
Yes,
And you were messaging with your other son, Paul, correct?
yes.
And those messages speak for themselves, right?
I'm not disputing the messages. I'm just telling you what I do and don't remember.
Now, you testified earlier today that during the time after your husband's stroke, you were, quote, barely surviving. Do you remember testifying to that?
Yes,
You were surviving just fine. It was Timothy that was barely surviving, correct?
I wasn't aware of enough of what was going on around me. I wasn't, I admit that.
Now, another claim in your post-conviction motion is how your attorney, Mr. Johnson, handled the surveillance video from that closet, correct?
The motion about it, yes. Oh, yes, I know what you're talking about, yes, from the
Okay.
brief.
And so you are claiming that it was ineffective or deficient of Mr. Johnson to let the police officer testify to the contents of that video, correct?
I mean, if that's what's in, I trust my attorney with that, so.
Did you observe that video?
No.
You were in that video, though, to your knowledge, correct?
As far as I know, yes.
And that video has been described by multiple individuals as extremely graphic and haunting. Are you aware of that?
I think I've heard that, yes.
And that video actually, in fact, shows your son take his final breath. Are you aware of that?
I did not know that, no.
And it shows what you were doing in the time leading up to him taking that final breath. Are you aware of that?
I would assume so.
Are you aware that it shows you being extremely cruel to him in those moments?
I don't know.
You're also aware that after he's passed away, it depicts you dragging him out of that closet. Are you aware of that?
I remember performing CPR, so I guess was what happened before that.
Okay, 1 second. Thank you. Are you aware that at the end of that video, after you pull him out, there's audio about telling him to stop faking it?
I have no idea what was in it.
Are you also aware that before he passes away, you call him a dummy?
There was something said about that at trial. We all say stupid things.
So it's your testimony that that was just a stupid thing to say to your dying son?
It's
To
stupid.
insult him?
It's a stupid thing to say to your child, period. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
you
saying.
said it, correct?
Yes, I mean, I'm not disputing it.
Do you believe that your attorney should have let the jury view that video in its entirety?
No.
Okay. So you think it's probably a good trial strategy to shield the jurors from seeing you on video insult your dying son, correct?
Yes.
It's probably a good trial strategy to not have the jurors personally witness his last breaths, correct?
Yes.
And it's probably good trial strategy to not have the jurors observe you telling him he's faking it when he's already dead, correct?
Yes.
Now, it's your testimony that during the trial there was some discussion about the manslaughter instruction, correct?
What do you mean? I'm sorry, can you rephrase that?
So you testified on direct that when Mr. Johnson came to the jail, he was discussing jury instructions.
Oh, you mean this hearing? Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm
I
sorry,
was
not this
confused.
hearing, I apologize, the trial. During the trial, there was a discussion that Mr. Johnson had with you about the manslaughter instruction.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm going to ask a couple of questions that sort of dovetail off of the court's questions here, though. And I'm sorry to go backwards, but you said when you're having these dissociative episodes, you have involuntary movements.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, it's being recorded. So is that
Yes, I'm sorry.
And let me ask you this. Was it an involuntary movement for you to grab the garbage can while you were testifying? Or was that intentional?
I don't know what you mean. I mean, I was going to throw up. It
Okay,
was
so
right
did
there.
you make the choice to extend your arms and grab it?
Yeah.
And did you make the choice to lean your body over?
I don't know. I don't know on that. I mean, I was about to throw up, so.
Did it happen by accident that you were positioned that way?
I mean, no.
Okay. Are you aware there was no vomit in that garbage can once you left the courtroom?
I have no idea.
It's because you faked the vomit, correct?
I didn't fake anything. I dry heave all the time. I dry heave from motion sickness before I got the motion sickness meds I used this morning for the trip over.
Okay, let's talk about that. So didn't you claim at the last hearing that you had some motion sickness on the way into court?
Yes, I did.
And do you recall whether or not that was supported by any of your transport team?
I remember they said that they had glanced at me in the mirror. I mean, I know I was dry heaving. I didn't actually throw up anything, but that's because I didn't eat intentionally, because I knew I get motion
So do you
sick.
remember, I believe there was some in-court inquiry to your Department of corrections officers. Do you remember them saying something from these seats back here at the last hearing?
I remember them talking from there, yes.
Okay, and I believe the judge, and I don't have the transcript, but I believe the court may have even sworn them in briefly for a couple
One of them, yes.
One of them, yes. And it was as to your claims of motion sickness, or how you were feeling on the transport.
How I
correct?
was feeling on the transport, yes.
And there was no mention of you vomiting in that transport van, correct?
No, I dry heaved. I didn't have anything on my stomach to throw up, thankfully.
Ms. Vander Ark, you were here for that November hearing, correct?
Yes,
And you sat in the courtroom while the other witnesses testified, correct?
yes.
Is it your testimony today that they all were lying about what happened in the jail before the Friday start of the trial?
What do you mean?
Well, so let's talk about it. We had multiple individuals who testified about your desire to not come to court, correct?
I know at least one said that, and I do remember making comment, I don't want to, but most of it was I can't.
Okay, but you did say the words, "I don't want
I
to."
do, yeah.
Is that a yes?
Yes,
And you ultimately memorialized that in an affidavit.
yes.
And you don't dispute that that is something you signed, correct?
No, I don't dispute it, I signed it.
Do you remember, actually, I'm going to strike that, let me rephrase. Ms. Katecki testified about her observations of you
Yes,
that morning, correct?
yes, she did. Although hers were different than Fred's and mine, but some of them.
It's fair to say you have some selective memory about what you remember from that morning, correct?
It's not selective at all. I still have memory issues to this day.
So it's fair to say, though, you remember some of the things, enough to
Some
say
of it.
Ms. Katecki's is different than yours.
Well, because I sat there and I was the one that wrote the affidavit. And I sat here when Mr. Johnson said that, and officer said that I was curled into a ball on the floor, and then she said I was up in a chair, that it wasn't as bad. But he described it, I mean, the most accurate total description was what he did, what he described and the officers described. Hers wasn't as accurate.
So you're saying that Mr. Johnson's description of you that morning is accurate?
From what he said, as far as curled up into a ball and not able to communicate, yes.
So I said yes or no. Mr. Johnson's testimony about that morning is accurate.
As far as I remember I'd have to go
Yes
back.
or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, Mr. Anders.
Are you saying all of Mr. Johnson's testimony was accurate?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
Not even close.
all right. You were seen by a number of professionals, correct?
Yes, sir.
One of those professionals is Dr. Colin King, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the prosecution mentioned that on page 10 there is a conclusion part, and you testified as to that, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The ultimate conclusion on page 11 of Dr. Collins' report, can you read that, the highlighted portion?
Yes, sir. After reviewing the text messages with Ms. Vander Ark and the police report, Ms. Vander Ark continues to insist that she did nothing wrong and was not convinced that her actions and instructions caused the death of her son. This clinician is of the opinion that Ms. Vander Ark truly believes that her actions were appropriate and not harmful.
Okay, and this is a report that Mr. Johnson gave you?
Yes.
And you talked about this with Mr. Johnson?
I don't remember how much we talked about that.
Okay. As far as you're aware that you've always expressed your innocence to Mr. Johnson.
Absolutely.
Did you ever concede or ask him to concede to anything?
Absolutely not. I never would have.
Now, after day 3, after your testimony, were you seen by any medical personnel?
No.
On day 4, were you seen by any medical personnel?
No, sir.
I have nothing further.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
I have some questions. Ms. Vander Ark, I think you testified at the beginning of your testimony for Mr. Ambrose, is that you said on day 1, Mr. Johnson told you that you had to testify. Is that true?
No, I said I knew I had to testify.
You knew you had to testify?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did that conclusion come from the conversation between the two of you? Or was that something that you were already had concluded in your mind even before you talked to him?
I think it was mostly I concluded. I mean, we discussed it, but I kind of knew that from the first time. Or the
So
first
you
day.
knew it, so you're telling me this idea of you testifying came independently even before you had spoken to Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then did Mr. Johnson discourage that idea? Did he encourage that idea?
He agreed with me the whole way. We talked about that multiple times and the whole process. And we always said I had to testify. There was never a question in that.
You said that Mr. Johnson, the discussions between the two of you had largely centered around that the prosecution had to prove intentional acts max, is that true?
For the child abuse charge, yes.
Okay.
Intentionally or knowingly?
Intentional and knowingly, okay. And you said you two agreed that, based on what you were telling him, that intentional and knowingly had not occurred?
That's correct.
Okay. Was there ever discussion after that about, well, it's potentially, there could be a negligence argument here?
No, we never
Never talked
discussed
about
it.
negligence?
Never.
You had indicated that you saw Mr. Johnson, you said around 2 to 3 times during that first month after you were arrested and taken to the jail, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. After that, you used the phrase, I saw him once in a blue moon. Can you give me an approximation how often that you believe you saw him going forward? Once a month, twice a month?
It wasn't. I think when he testified, he said once every other month. I don't feel like it was even that often,
Okay,
but
so
I don't know.
what's your independent memory of how often you came?
I would say once every few months.
Once every few months?
Yes.
Do you mean 3 months?
At least 3, yes, sir.
So once every 3 months? Okay. All right. Did that frequency increase as the trial approached?
I don't feel like it did. I mean, there was a couple at the end that were closer together,
Okay.
but
The month before the trial, can you tell me how many times you remember him visiting you?
I'm thinking 1, 2. There was 2 actual visits, and then we came in here for 20 minutes
Okay.
to do a little bit of prep, just a few minutes.
I want to make sure, I should have prefaced what I was saying. When we talk about Mr. Johnson, I mean himself,
Yes.
not any other member of his team.
No, I mean,
Okay, so those what you were testifying to was Mr. Johnson himself? Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. Were there any other members of his quote-unquote team that had come and talked to you outside of those times that Mr. Johnson had come individually? So separate from Mr. Johnson?
You mean just before trial, or what do you mean?
No,
by that?
well, let's start, you said 2 to 3 times Mr. Johnson the first month. Was there anybody else from his quote-unquote, let me go back. What did you know of his team? What did you consider his team to be?
I knew he had some interns. He had the original social worker, I don't remember her name. I'm sorry, I'm bad with
So
names.
social worker?
She came in once a week to the jail for a while.
Okay, once a week, okay.
And then that was it. We came in for a hearing. I think it was to something about competency, and Nick Goings was there.
Okay.
So I knew he was on the team. And then both the social worker and Fred had mentioned a research attorney.
Okay, did you ever meet the research?
No, I did not.
So you believe 2 interns, research attorney, at least one other attorney, Mr. Goings, and you believed he was an attorney, correct?
Yes. Oh, I knew he was.
And Mr. Johnson, is there any, and the social worker, was there anybody else that you knew was on this team?
Not specifically. I know he would say he had people working on it, but that's
All right, and you're saying the social worker came in every week?
for a while. Before that one left. She left the public defender's office.
Okay, do you know approximately when?
I
she
have
stopped
no
coming to see
idea.
her? Okay.
I'm sorry,
That's
but
okay. And then when a new one took over, did that social worker come?
I saw her twice, I think, in person
Twice.
before trial.
Okay, all right. In terms of the interns, how often did you see an intern?
They actually did not come like he had said they would.
They never came?
One came with him. It was the same one a couple of times.
Okay.
I don't know, 2 or 3 times. It was there at the end. She sat in on the trial too.
So did an intern ever come independently of Mr. Johnson?
No. No, that
Um, Okay. I read your affidavit. One of the arguments advanced by your attorney and you in the affidavit was that Mr. Johnson did not argue what you felt. Well, let me ask you a question. The dehydration argument, was that to you should have been the primary argument?
I did not even know about that until the medical examiner testified.
Okay.
So when I realized that, I asked him to ask about it, but I think he only asked one question and that was it. I didn't even know about that until that day.
Okay, in your affidavit, it says, and this is one of the paragraphs, this is page 11. It says, the medical examiner stated that one of the main causes of death was dehydration. It says, I specifically asked Mr. Johnson to examine this much deeper. There was no accusation against me regarding depriving Timothy of water. This alone could have raised a reasonable doubt that Mr. Johnson never pursued the subject at all. When you make the statement, I specifically asked Mr. Johnson to examine this much deeper, are you saying, was this before the trial, or was this after you heard the medical examiner testify?
This was after I heard the medical examiner testify.
Okay. So it's your testimony, and when you said you asked Mr. Johnson to examine this much deeper, was that during a break after the ME had testified?
No, it was in the middle of it. I wrote him a note.
Well, you wrote him a note?
Yes.
Could you recall what the note said?
I put dehydration question mark exclamation point. And I said, please ask more about this, because
That's
he
what
had
you wrote
access
on
to water. Yes, sir.
Okay. And it's your testimony that he did not?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay. I don't want to go too much into what could have, should have. Did Timothy have access to water?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Was he cognitively capable of getting water on his own?
Yes, he was on the spectrum, but the only symptom he really showed was awkwardness. He was grade level, he was passing all his classes, and he could communicate. He did interact with some people at little man's baseball games, but he just was awkward. He didn't want to hang out around other kids, and he was 15. He was, you try to hug him, he's like, Mom, go away. But no, he could communicate just fine. Trust me, he could communicate just fine.
And I just want to be clear what you believe the argument that should have been made. You believe the argument that should have been advanced to the jury was that Timothy caused his own death by not drinking water.
I mean, I think that something should have come up. And I just told Miss I probably can't even. Okay.
Is that the argument? Is that the argument that you believe should have been advanced to the jury, that Timothy caused his own death because he stopped drinking water?
I think it should have been mentioned, yes. He had suicidal stuff before I got him, so he was hospitalized.
So he had suicidal stuff?
Yeah, he was actually hospitalized for suicidal ideation. His stepmom told me that.
Okay. So you believe that an argument should have been made that Timothy essentially consciously caused his own death? He was suicidal. He committed suicide.
I mean, I don't know what happened, so, but
Well,
it's.
I know that.
Yeah.
I understand that. But I'm trying
I think it should have been brought up, yes.
Okay, all right. I understand. Okay. Did your concerns with Mr. Johnson's representation, did those arise prior to the trial?
I was worried about it along the way, yes.
Okay. Did you ever attempt to bring those concerns, to the court's attention?
No.
Okay.
I wasn't in good shape. Remember, the time I was isolated, I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping.
Okay.
I was not in good shape.
You had the ability to write letters, correct?
Yes, but I didn't have any, I mean, for the most part, at first I had a little bit of money on my account, but I didn't have any
Well, you
envelopes or
can write
anything.
cuts, correct? In jail?
Yes, yeah.
Right. Those are free, correct?
Yeah, you can write them, they go to your attorney.
Were you aware that you could send one to the court?
No, I was not.
Now, you were in court a couple of times before trial, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Is there a reason you did not bring that issue to the court at the time of those hearings?
I didn't want to speak out of turn. I mean, I wasn't thinking about it right then, but I just, those hearings were for certain purposes.
So you didn't feel that you could directly bring those to the court?
Yes, yes.
All right. Just below that paragraph on page 11, it says, I testified for around 5 hours on the Thursday of trial. I was supposed to finish my testimony on Friday, including some very important questions that I wanted Mr. Johnson to ask me before I finished testifying. Do you recall what those questions were?
For the most part, no. I remember one of them because I lose weight really fast. And so, I know there were some questions about Timothy's size along the way. And then we also talked, because he's 6'1" and was like 130 pounds, and I'm small. And I was going to have him ask me about how quickly I lose weight, because if I don't eat for a day, I'll lose a couple pounds that fast. So I wanted him to bring that up.
So you wanted him to ask how quickly you lose weight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, family genetics. I mean, my mama did the same thing.
Okay. Now, any other questions that you can recall?
Not that I remember, no.
All right.
I didn't have a pen or paper to write them down. I didn't have that available when they put me down in the holding cell. What paper I had where I was at, I didn't have access to it.
Okay. These questions that you had contemplated, those were, I'm trying to figure out when you formed those questions in your mind. Was that on Thursday or was that on Friday?
Thursday afternoon.
Thursday
evening.
afternoon.
Thursday evening, yeah, after trial.
Thursday evening, okay. At the time that these questions were formed, were you suffering from a panic attack?
No, it was after that.
Okay. Friday morning, did you formulate any additional questions?
Not that I remember, no.
Okay. I want to know there's a lot in your affidavits about what was going on in the holding cell, that you curl up into a ball, you're barely able to communicate. You asked Mr. Johnson to postpone the trial, and you recall what his response was.
Yes.
I want to know, do you independently remember that, or is that what your affidavit, is that based on what someone else told you happened?
No, I remembered that small portion of it. I remember bits and pieces. I remember other parts of the morning as well, but that's it. No, I remember laying there. I was curled up, and because he testified that he had explained options to me, and he did not. I asked at least 2 or 3 times to adjourn because I couldn't do it, and he said that it was just going to be the same, and that they just go on without me.
Okay, so those things you can remember, but other things you don't remember, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so during these panic attacks, it sounds like you have, if I say lucidity, you know what that means?
Yes.
Okay, so you're saying during these panic attacks, there are brief moments of lucidity during these panic attacks, where you remember, where you can cognitively understand what people are saying.
Not usually during a panic attack. It wasn't one solid panic attack. It was multiple panic attacks that morning, but there was times where I wasn't actually in the middle of a panic attack.
So you're saying that what you recall independently of these communications is when you were not suffering a panic attack.
Yes.
So the recollections that you have are from non-panic attack instances, correct?
Yes.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you, Ms. Vander Ark.
Yes.
Any follow-up, Mr. Ambrose, on those questions? Mr. Ambrose?
As far as you're aware, when was the last time that either you or Paul provided food to Timothy?
I want to say it was the day before he passed. I think Paul said he'd given him something.
Okay. All right, I have no further questions.
Any follow-up?
So, Ms. Vander Ark, it's your testimony that Mr. Johnson should have probed dehydration, correct?
Yes, he knew about it the whole time and never mentioned it to me.
Well, you in fact knew about it too, correct?
What do you mean?
Well, let's go back. Were you at your preliminary examination?
Yes.
You attended it?
Yes.
And do you remember the testimony of Dr. Joyce DeYoung,
At the preliminary? The medical
the
examiner?
medical examiner?
I don't remember her testifying at the
Do you have
preliminary.
any reason to contest the certified transcript of the preliminary examination?
No.
And in fact, on page 87 of your preliminary examination, the forensic pathologist testified his cause of death was dehydration and extreme emaciation due to malnutrition and starvation. Any reason to contest that?
No. I don't even remember her testifying.
Now, there was also, I'm sorry, I cut her testimony off short though, but a significant contributing factor of exogenous hypothermia, so exposure to cold, end quote. Any reason to contest that?
No, she's the medical expert.
The reason he had hypothermia is because he was in water for hours before his death, correct?
That's not what Paul told me. Paul had run.
I didn't ask you what Paul told you.
If that's what she
The evidence
said.
showed that Timothy was in an ice bath for hours before his death, correct?
Not the whole time, because we didn't have enough ice for that.
Okay, well, let's go to this. You had an ice maker on your counter at the house, correct?
Yes,
And that ice maker was used to put ice cubes into a bath, correct?
yes.
And you
Yes,
were
I know.
aware of that?
Yes,
And ice is technically water, correct?
yes,
And bathtub water is water, correct?
yes.
So yes, it's fair to say you did not restrict his access to water when you ordered ice baths, correct?
I'll go with it. That's a really weird question, but I'll go
Well, okay.
with it.
You weren't keeping him dry by ordering ice baths for him, correct?
That's a really weird question.
Well, ma'am, you are saying that Timothy committed suicide by not drinking water.
I didn't say that. I said it was possible, and it should have been explored because of his previous history.
Well, do you understand that if it had been explored, that there'd be further questions about the ice baths?
I don't know.
Because naturally a bath contains water, correct?
Yes,
Which was a punishment that you ordered for your son, correct?
once or twice. Yes.
Now, you also said that your attorney asked you when was the last time Timothy was provided food. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Do you recall having conversations about putting food in front of his face and pulling it away?
No, I don't.
But you have no reason to contest those
I'm not
text messages,
contesting
correct?
them,
I'm
no.
sorry, let me finish my question before you answer, okay? You have no reason to contest those text messages, correct?
Correct.
And so if they say that you said to essentially tease your starving son with a pizza roll, that Paul should do it.
If that's what it said, I'm not contesting it.
You also ordered that he be provided hot sauce, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is that the food you're talking about with your attorney, saying you provided food?
No, not as far as I know.
You also ordered that he have hot sauce placed on his genitals, correct?
It's what the text messages says.
Is that the food that you say you provided to him before his death?
No.
Now, the medical examiner didn't determine that your son died from suicide, correct?
That's correct.
But now you're here telling the court that he was suicidal.
I didn't say for sure he was. I said it never got raised.
Well, you sort of raised it in that video that you said that your attorney should have played, correct?
What do you mean I raised it in the video?
On the morning you discovered Timothy was non-responsive in that closet. Okay, you following
Okay,
along with me?
yes.
So that morning, when you discover he's non-responsive in the closet, you have discussions with Paul about telling authorities that Timothy was on a hunger strike, correct?
I'm not disputing it. I don't.
Did you, in fact, tell Paul that we need to say he's on a hunger strike?
I don't remember. If that's what it was in there, then I'm not contesting it, but I don't know. I don't remember.
And now you're saying he was on a drinking strike too, correct?
I'm saying it should have been explored. There's a big difference.
This is just another scheme of yours to try to blame Timothy for his own death, isn't it?
Not at all. There is no scheme.
Okay, maybe not the right word. Your testimony is blaming Timothy for his own death,
I'm not
correct?
blaming anybody. I'm saying there's possibilities that should have been raised.
Well,
He
you're
had a
saying he was-
history of suicidal.
So you're saying he was suicidal?
I don't know. I never even thought about the possibility until that morning in court, because I honestly do not remember the medical examiner testifying at prelim. I don't.
You didn't think about the possibility until you were trying to find out a way to blame Mr. Johnson to get a new trial, is that correct?
No, that's not true.
I have nothing further.
All right, Mr. Ambrose.
Have you seen the death certificate?
Yes. I didn't see it till that morning of trial, but
Until when?
until the morning I testified.
Okay. Do you recall what the first thing that is listed on this death certificate is?
It's dehydration.
All right. And it's kind of strange, right?
It's really odd.
Because he's in an ice bath, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he has access to water, right?
Yes.
And so,
He didn't,
he didn't drink.
no,
You never prevented him from drinking.
no.
All right, no further questions.
Any thoughts?
No.
All right, Vander Ark, can you stand down? All right, Mr. Ambrose, any additional witnesses?
I do not.
Any witnesses, Mr. King?
No, Your Honor, just if the court would recall, we took my witnesses out of order last hearing. I have no further witnesses.
Okay. All set, Mr. Ambrose? Anything else, Mr. Ambrose?
No.
All right, I think it's important for the court, based on the testimony of Ms. Vander Ark regarding failure to raise concerns to the court. Ms. Vander Ark, I want to make sure, we address you directly at this point, so you are free to talk to the court.
Okay.
I need to know if you believe that your attorney, Mr. Ambrose, is a little awkward, but is there anything that you believe he should do going forward at this point in time in regarding to your motion for a new trial?
No,
Are you satisfied with his representation?
very much so, yes.
Any other witnesses you want him to call?
No,
Is there anything else you want him to do?
no.
Okay, all right, good enough. All right, I think that's the evidence is concluded. The court is going to take the matter under advisement. The court will issue a written opinion, and then we'll go from there. All right.
I'm assuming that Mr. Roberts is not testifying?
No, no, he's not.
Okay. That was mentioned at the last hearing that he may be testifying, and I was kind of prepping for that.
Do you want to call him as a witness?
No, that's all right.
Okay, you sure?
Yeah.
Ms. Van Ark, do you want him to testify? Mr. Roberts? All right, good enough. We're in recess. Good day, good weekend.